I think, the primary inquiry and reflection we should all be in is like, what is the source of the expectation?
Mm,
Is the expectation really an expectation that I have of myself that is born of my values, that is born out of my own inner drive and inner sense of wanting to do more? Or is that expectation, was that formed outside of me and I'm simply absorbing and adopting a social expectation, a public expectation, right?
mhm.
So whenever we can stop and pause and ask ourselves, what's the source of this? Why do I feel the need to do this? Is that really inside of me, or is that outside of me? And the more and more we can get really clear about the stuff that is being generated from within us, a desire, a yearning, a wanting that's from here, from inside, from a wholehearted place. If we can get really clear about those things and prioritize those things, then we're on the right track. But the
Mhm.
more and more we check in with ourselves and actually realize that the expectations we have of ourselves came in from the outside, our parents, our family, our community, society at large, it's going to be really hard to get that stuff done. It's really hard
Mhm.
to fulfill on something that didn't actually get generated from within you. So if you find over and over again, you have this massive list of stuff that you want to do in Ramadan, and somehow year after year, Ramadan after Ramadan, you can't quite get through the checklist. I urge you and encourage you, go back to that checklist and ask yourself, what is the source of each of these things? Is this something that was born out of my own inner desire and expectation of myself? Or
Mhm.
did this list get generated by default from out there, you
Mhm.
know, from all the things that I learned that I'm supposed to quote unquote be doing? And if you can get down to a core list, if you can shrink that list and only include the stuff that gets generated from within, that is sourced from you, sourced from your own spirit, from your own sense of values, then I promise it's going to be a lot easier to do that stuff because there is a natural motivation when it's generated from within. We have a higher level of energy to quote unquote accomplish or do or get through the stuff that is really specifically important to us rather than stuff that is important to other people and that we just kind of adopted by default.
Man, I love the people listening won't know that this happened, but I love that as you were saying that, the sun kind of came on your face, like the clouds parted. It seemed like very prophetic, very fitting for what you just said.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I started to feel the warmth and I was
yeah,
like, hey,
the world came together for that one.
mm,
But I agree. I always like to say personally that like expectation is the root of all disappointment. Every time you feel a negative emotion, I think you can always chase back to some expectation that didn't need to be there in the first place. And that's just my personal philosophy. And I want to fight with the abstract concept of expectation very often because of that. But I like that you switched it and kind of divided expectations from an external expectation to an internal expectation. What expectations do I have for myself as a human being to fulfill for my own needs, for my own desires? Those kind of cover
value,
everything. Yeah, values, that's a good one. Philosophies, you know.
right? What do I
Um,
actually value, right?
mhm,
What is important to me? We are not a monolith, right? Often I think our identity as Muslims collapses us
mhm,
and we view ourselves as a monolith. Like we all have the same goals, we all have the same stuff that we are supposed to be doing. We all,
right.
in some ways, that's true. We have pillars of faith, right? That are a guideline and a map for
Mhm,
how we should be living and what God expects of us. Everything outside of that is human expectation, right?
mhm,
And to get into alignment and to get into a sensation that, like, actually, my religion is personal. Actually, my spirituality and my connection with God is personal. The way we do that is we check in with ourselves. What's important to me? How do I want to approach Ramadan? Not how I was told to approach Ramadan.
Hmm.
How do I want to approach the prayer, right? The prayer is already there as a framework of expectation that's from God. But how do I want to? People pray in a million different ways, right?
Hmm.
And so the more and more we can get away from this idea that we are a monolith, we all have the same goals, everyone should be going to Taraweeh, everyone.
Hmm.
The more we can get away from that general umbrella and get really specific about ourselves and our relationship to this religion and our relationship to God, and get more specific about our inner expectations, I think the better we'll feel when Ramadan is over. I think
Hmm.
the more we will celebrate the way that we were in Ramadan, rather than judging ourselves against everyone else, rather than judging what we accomplish against what other people accomplished. We are not all built the same. We are not built equally in that sense. God judges us based on our individual capacities. And so we have to get really individual and really specific about our goals and our values, and stop generalizing and stop assuming that what works for other people works for us. And
Hmm.
this isn't just true about religion and spirituality, it's everything.
Right.
What work The foods that work for other people don't work for us, right?
Hmm.
The amount of socialization that works for you doesn't work for me. And we forget that. We lose sight of that. We're constantly leveling ourselves up against other people. We're
Hmm.
constantly using other people as a benchmark for what we should be doing and what we should be accomplishing. And Ramadan is a very real invitation to make yourself the benchmark. And if we can cultivate that here in this month, then we're really setting ourselves up for a lot more contentment and joy in the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I love that. It's reflecting on what is important for you, embodying that during Ramadan, finding ways to accurately embody that for yourself, and then carrying it through the rest of the year, and then checking back in every now and then so that by next Ramadan, you're still continuing what you built this
Yeah,
Ramadan, right?
absolutely.